Right, so last we left off, we talked about the basic navigation of a Schoology course. So now that you have an understanding of where to find your courses and kind of where to find everything within your course, let's talk about the specific material types that you can add to a course. So when you go to the Add Materials menu, you have several different options, as well as the ability to import from resources. So you can go about this a couple ways. You can actually add all of your materials into your course, and then at the end of the school year, before your courses become archived, you can send them to your personal resources over here. So they're saved for later and accessible next year. Or you can actually begin by creating resources in here, creating materials in your resources folder, and then importing them into your course as those materials are needed. So if you were to go to import from resources here, it'll basically take you to the material stored in this resources section up here. And if you have different collections saved, you can kind of pull in those resources as they're needed and import them. But let's talk about how to create them from scratch within your course. So as I mentioned in my last video, I would recommend you add folders in here to create an organization system for students. And this could be units, this could be weeks. You don't have to give it a description. You also don't have to give it an availability date. But if you wanted the folder to no longer be visible after a certain date, you can add that. And then you can decide if you want it to be unpublished while you begin adding content to it, or publish right away, or publish on a certain start date. You can decide all of that. So I'm just going to leave the default and put my folder in here. And then now that I have a folder created, I'm going to open that up and begin adding some materials to it. So one of the first material types, and one of the more commonly used ones, is the assignment. So this is anything that you would like students to use to submit a document or some sort of resource to you, because it has a turn-in feature. So begin by naming your assignment. And then I would use the description field to give the specific requirements of your assignment. Also, if you have a view-only Google file, you can put the link to that file here, and students will be able to click on the link and make their own copy of it. A lot of teachers, they use Hapara to put a copy of a document in each student's drives. And if that's the case, then I would just say in this description field, check your Google Drive for the document named, whatever it is, and, complete the assignment and turn it in here. That way, you've already shared the file with them, you've told them where to access it, what it's named, and then they'll come back to Schoology to turn that file in. So we'll talk a little bit too about what that turn-in process will look like. You can select a due date for students here. You can put in, however many points it's worth. We'll talk about grading periods more, grading categories more when we talk about the grade book, but you're going to have 4 grading categories that you can select from here. And this is important if you're weighting your categories, if they're different weights. It'll determine part of their grade. And then scale or rubric, you may have created a rubric at some point. You can actually use that for grading purposes here. Otherwise, just keep it on numeric. And then you have some options at the bottom, and I'll go through these. So individually assign is in the case that you have certain students in different grading groups, you would be able to assign it to a particular grading group, or if you have other students that need a specific differentiated material, you can assign it to specific students. You would just need to start typing the name of the group or the student here to individually assign it. So that's that setting. You also have learning objectives here. And as I mentioned previously, this is beneficial for you to be able to use the Mastery tab and actually see really nice reports by learning objective or standard. They have Common Core in here. They have NGSS standards. You can actually create your own custom ones. So if you're teaching social studies, I don't think that they have C3 entered quite yet, but you'll be able to at least put those in here, and and then you can kind of monitor by standard. Lock would be if you don't want any student to access it, that you don't want them to be turning anything in at the moment. And then this it looks like a box with an arrow pointed down, is your submissions enabled. So at times, if you want them to actually turn something into you, you'll keep submissions enabled. If it's just an assignment that is, just more of like a reminder to do something, you'll turn this off. So like, let's say, for example, it was a paper pencil assignment. You could just say, complete workbook page, whatever, and turn off submissions enabled so they don't try to turn anything into you through Schoology. And then here, publish to students means they can actually see this, it's available to them, and they will be able to see the grade for it in their grade book. Statistics, this is if you wanted to see grading statistics, not super beneficial, but you could. And then comments enabled and disabled, this would be if you wanted students to be able to write a comment on your actual assignment posting. Very few instances that I think you would need to do this, but that's what that would be for. And then when you're finished, you can go to create it, and it will post it to your materials. So I have one assignment here ready to go. So let's talk about now what this actually looks like from the student view. So now that I'm in the view of the student here, you can actually see this is the materials tab of my course. I can see the unit folder, and I can see that assignment here. And when I open that up, I'll see the description of the assignment, when it was posted, when it's actually due, and the time, and then they have a submit button here off to the side. So what the students can actually do then is they can go to upload a file by going into their Google Drive and upload it that way. Or they can also go here, there's a resources menu. They can go down to apps, and there's a Google Drive app here where they can pull in a file that way. They could also go here, there's a create window, and they can put the link to the Google file. Keep in mind that if you do the link, it's literally going to look like on your end just a blank page with a link on it, and you'll have to click and open each of those links, but maybe that's what you want. You want to be able to use the commenting features of Google. But it doesn't really matter. There's several ways you can go about this. Just make sure you tell the students what you prefer. If you'd rather them upload the file to you and it kind of turns out to look like a PDF version of the file, have them do that. Or, like I said, go to create, insert a link to it, and they can submit it that way. So I'll just go to file. I'm going to pick a random file from my temporary folder here, and I'm going to submit that, and then it says submitted on time. It'll also tell the student if they've submitted it late. They can resubmit if need be. And on your end, what you see when you go into your assignment is you can see all of the submissions off to the side, and they'll say if the student had submitted it on time or if they were late. It also tells you, how many of them you've received it from, and then how many need grading, and then the total number who have not submitted it quite yet. So I'll open up the submission from the student here, and I'll get to see kind of what it looks like. And this is an ungraded assignment, but if it was graded, up here at the top where it says ungraded, I would see a place where I could enter a score. If I had attached a rubric, I can actually click on this and open the rubric, and I'd be able to add the score that way. I can add a comment to the student here. I can attach a file for them. I can record my voice for them. So many things here that I can do to give feedback as well. And there is also an option for me to add like a sticky note comment right here. So I can post a note with my feedback and save that. I have a pen tool if I wanted to draw their attention to something. several different tools that I could use. A highlighter here as well. If this was actually text that could be selected, this is just an image. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can give feedback here. And then you can kind of navigate through the different student submissions, and then there'll be an additional arrow over here if more than one student had submitted something, where you can progress through each student's homework submission very easily and grade it. So that is just a brief overview of how to add an assignment, and that once you add a score as you're grading it, automatically gets added to your gradebook.